Welcome back to The Edge and our story based in Cape Couve, where a phantom tsunami ultimately saved a local restaurant. In this episode, we learn more Cape Couve history, which includes a mysterious character with her own history, finding her way here. Welcome to Cape Couve.
I'm Maddie Dory. This is Cape Couve, Episode 5. In the past, there were things that had happened. That's how it began, she mused. The pink Cadillac kept its path on the westward highway, its driver thinking hard, also driven herself, driven to get away, to start yet again, to open a door to a new view. Just hours ago, Lula stood before the cabaret audience, taking her third bow, and as she did, she made the decision. With her usual sly smile, she waved the audience off, headed to her dressing room, and changed everything.
How long ago was it? 5 years? More? When she stood before the judges, the director, the theater decision makers, having walked into a casting call, friendless, unschooled, and unafraid, ready to take the deep dive that would separate her at last from her hometown roots. She heard the whispers, the deep breaths, and could even feel the nods of heads as she walked off, the part firmly hers.
She hung up her costume with care, as she did so many times before, setting her shoes and her headpieces in their places. Only this time, as she touched up her bleached hair in the sink and checked her brows and legs, she knew she would leave, and leave Skeels for good.
She hadn't even bothered to clean up the apartment around Skeels as he lay comatose on the bed. After another of his nightclub gigs where he sang and played and drank until he was deranged. The audience loved it, and so did she. Until now. Until their lives became as boring and predictable as the life she was trying to escape so long ago. That and the constant accusations he threw at her. She was cheating. She was getting more audience attention than his band. That she was the draw, not he. And wasn't it he that made her? She tiptoed out his languorous, around his languorous and still body, gathered up her things, stuffed them in her bag, walked out and closed the door forever, into the pink caddy driving west to the gaping, beckoning openness.
She knew of a place, the Trinity Theater in the Pacific Northwest, a fabled place. She smiled to herself, thinking of her great-aunt's story about it. Not near a city, but by the ocean, an old theater from the vaudeville days, promoted to the regional theater circuit for a while, now shuttered. A space all her own. She kept driving.
In the past, there were things that had happened.
Wrote Artemis in her notebook. Artemis was the founder of the new local newspaper, the Cape Couve Chronicle. She pored over the archives in the basement of the town hall for Cape Couve, the quiet northwest coastal town she had come to when her Midwest reporter's job was canceled after a buyout and kill order. The city controller, Mike Zimmer, had let her into the archives. He was interested in her research. He was interested that she was interested. Most newbies to Cape Couve gave up on the place after a few weeks. But this woman, this reporter, seemed to be a keeper.
There, with her dog Bounder at her feet, she learned of the 150-year-old former newspaper, the North Coast Gazetteer. The issues describing the jolly times at the founding of Cape Couve in the 1890s, and how the founding father, Jack Williamson, had seen the cove and the coast and fell in love. This would be the new port, and he would be its founder. The cove was too small to be commercially viable, and ships would find it treacherous to get into port, with its sandbars and lack of protection from the sea weather. But Jack didn't know that. He was too charmed by all and his dreams.
Early on, the town was a success. And at first, Cape Couve delivered by the sea and rail. The lack of enough coast to expand and its distance from the railroad and roads became prohibitive and cut off the community of Cape Couve. No matter, People kept coming and settling, the beauty of the place mesmerizing. Only later would Williamson note the recorder's office had misspelled the town's name as Cape Couve.
Trade stalled, and Cape Couve became dependent on touristry to its quaint and quiet setting, only serving the locals with its fishery benefits.
Artemis flipped through more files. There was the matter of the rail yards, the fisheries, and the tourist shops. There was a theater, once a stop on the regional circuit for traveling acts, then for movies, then for nothing at all, but that business dragged to a halt. Then the odd footnotes. Jack Williamson became mayor. His wife Patricia ran all the social events. They had a son, Jack Jr., who in turn had a son, James, who, if he were alive, would be in his 70s by now. And like a dynasty, they passed on the mayorship like kings.
I see you've been reading into the Williamsons' history.
Said Mark, suddenly behind her, making Artemis jump.
What? Yes, this history is fascinating, if a little unusual.
It's time to close for today. I'll walk you out.
Artemis took it all in.
In the past, there were things that happened.
She closed the files and followed Mark up the stairs. The receptionist was long gone, but the sun still shone through the front door.
So, the Williamsons.
She ventured.
Yes, they are our own royalty, I suppose, and yes, still running the mayorship. No one will challenge them.
So, James, he would be...
Yes, he would be... Yes, he is.
Said Mark.
But then Zoltan, isn't he the mayor?
Mark nodded.
But...
I'll let you back in next Wednesday. 2 o'clock?
Without waiting for an answer, he closed the door and locked it.
As Artemis stood before the closed door, she could hear a car drive past a little too fast. She turned. A pink Cadillac? A woman with platinum hair? It zipped past them and turned at the corner, screeching a little, heading, it seemed, to downtown.
Come on, Bounder, let's go.
When reporter and dog also turned the corner, there was the pink caddy parked in front of the old boarded-up theater, the aging sign still announcing Trinity Theater. The very blonde woman was peering out at the window of the idling car. Artemis approached, but before she could say hello, the woman snorted.
Trinity Theater. It needs a new name. I think Silverlight works.
And with that, stepped on the pedal and peeled away. Bounder began to bark.
You're right, Bounder.
Artemis said.
Cape Couve just got more, well, curious.
She pulled out her pad and looked at her notes.
In the past, there were things that happened.
She mused.
In the past and in the present, that's the truth. That's the mystery. And we're going to find it all out.
She said out loud.
Got it, Bounder? Let's walk.
That's the scoop from Cape Couve, where time isn't even a concept. It's the Cape